Good day to everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Our topic today is music therapy and its impact on dementia. And we have a wonderful speaker who just popped up on our webcam. There's Karen Skipper. We're going to introduce her in just a few minutes. But before then, I've got some sponsors to thank and some housekeeping chores to do. So as most of you know, this series is very popular. We have it on a monthly basis. We couldn't do that without the generosity of our sponsors. We have Care Choices, Hospice and Palliative Services, O'Connor Mortuary, Caring Companions at Home, and Alzheimer's Orange County. And my name is Kim, and I'm a gerontologist with Alzheimer's Orange County, and I'll be your host today. So these sponsors are providing these webinars to anyone either working in the care industry or caring for a family member, anyone interested in topics related to aging and dementia. And we think that you'll find today's presentation especially informative and useful. With that, I'm anxious to introduce you to our wonderful speaker. So today's presenter is our own Karen Skipper, MTBC, which means she's board certified music therapist with a bachelor's in music and a music therapy equivalency. She has maintained a thriving practice of music therapy practice for over 30 years and has worked with people of many ages across a variety of diagnoses. She has a lot of experience with geriatric clients, including those with Alzheimer's disease, people that have had stroke, Parkinson's, depression, etc. Karen's practice includes making music with people in memory care, residential care communities, assisted living communities, hospice, and therapeutic singing groups for both people with Parkinson's, which is called the tremble clefs, and those who have cognitive impairment, and that's called the OK Chorale. And Karen will tell you that it's called the OK Chorale because any way they want to sing or anything they want to say is okay. In addition to her music therapy practice, Karen is also a frequent speaker at educational events and has been serving as director of music at Our Savior's Lutheran Church in San Clemente for more than 40 years. And Karen truly believes that anyone can benefit from making music. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Karen now, and take it away, Karen. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Kim. So today we are going to talk, as Kim introduced, about music therapy for people who forget. And so I'd like to start with a little primer on what exactly music therapy is. And before we go into the definition, which you can see on your screen, I want to tell you just a brief history of music therapy. So music has been in writings for 2,000 years as something that benefits people. But the actual practice of music therapy began after World War II in the Veterans Administration, when the veterans of World War II came back with PTSD and were treated with music techniques that were actually standardized for that type of treatment. So the book definition is the use of music interventions to accomplish an individualized goal within a therapeutic relationship. Music therapy is clinical and evidence-based. I will have some references throughout the presentation as to studies that will support what I am telling you today. It accomplishes specified goals. So it's not just about having fun, although that is very important as well. And it is administered by a credentialed professional. And currently, the requirement is in California is to call yourself a practitioner of music therapy. You must be certified or eligible for certification with the Certification Board for Music Therapy. So a subspecialty of music therapy is neurologic music therapy. I am also trained in that, which gives me the knowledge that I have about how to use music therapy specific to different brain function. and the therapeutic application of music to cognitive, sensory, and motor activity in order to improve function in diseases of the human nervous system. So neurologic music therapy does not teach people how to make music, although that might be a part of the treatment. It actually is designed to improve function. It also is research-based, and it is based on scientific knowledge in music perception and production and the effects thereof on non-musical brain and behavior functions. And that is the important part of music, neurologic music therapy, the non-musical behavior functions. So here are a couple examples of stories you may have seen in the news. A number of years ago, Arizona Senator Gabby Giffords was shot in the head during a speech that she was giving, and she actually credits music therapy for helping her regain her speech. And that is a photo of her with her music therapist as she is practicing singing to regain her speech. And if you've heard her recently, her speech is very good. So that is an example of music therapy. Now here's another person who you may have seen in the news recently. Tony Bennett, at 96 years old, recently won a Grammy Award for his latest album, if you will, that he did with Lady Gaga. And Tony Bennett was diagnosed with dementia about 6 years ago and continues to sing. He did a concert at Radio City Music Hall for his 95th birthday that was broadcast on PBS, I believe, but is still able to sing. The ability of him to sing is not music therapy. That is his ability to use that long-term memory with a 70-year career that allows him to still sing and make music and win Grammy Awards. So we're going to go into now why music therapy works. So music is cortically distributed. For those of you who don't know what that means, basically, music affects every part of your brain, and we will get to that a little bit in a minute. Music perception and production shares cortical networks with similar non-musical tasks. If we go back to Gabby Gifford, she started singing because she could not speak. And the pathways that allow us to recall lyrics and sing are close to the same areas that provide our ability to speak and use language. And so by strengthening those neural pathways that allowed her to sing, she was able to kind of tap into the neural networks that allowed her to speak as she is able to now. And musical processes can be maintained despite a loss of similar non-musical processes, which is what we just addressed with Ms. Gifford. Also, Kim mentioned I have worked a lot with people who have had strokes, and depending on where the damage is in the brain, stroke can impact someone's ability to speak. However, almost to a person, people who cannot speak because of having a stroke are able to sing, and sing with good recall of lyrics. And if you've ever been part of a singing group, there is a lot of community and fellowship that happens in a singing group. And so that can be a great morale booster for someone with a stroke who is not able to communicate verbally, to engage in singing with other people who possibly have not had strokes. And why does it work? Because it can drive functions despite the cortical damage. As we talked about, rhythmic entrainment and motor movement are two huge things that we see with music that can facilitate. Kim mentioned in my bio that I work with people with Parkinson's. And a lot of times people with Parkinson's have difficulties with gait. There is a term called festination, which is the common term is freezing of gait. And people with Parkinson's, again, almost to a person, if you add a strong musical beat, can start walking even if they have frozen in their gait. So music is a very powerful tool when used properly. So this is an interesting tool, and you will have the website on your handouts. I ask that you not look at this tool while I'm doing the presentation, because there's a lot more that you will want to learn. But this is an interesting tool, and I'm going to demonstrate it for you real quickly. So this is a website for a music therapy company located in Colorado Springs. And the tool that we're going to look at is called the Interactive Brain. And so all these little white dots are parts of the brain. And if you click on one, and these are the areas we're going to look at today. One that we're going to talk about in a minute is the amygdala. This is the explanation of what the amygdala does and how music affects the amygdala. So that's one of the areas we will look at today. This frontotemporal area, we are also going to look at, here again, a brief explanation of what it does and how music can be used to benefit that. This is another area of the frontal lobe that we're going to look at today with social, emotional, and behavioral skills. So interesting website to look at, and I invite you to do that because it's interesting. Please don't do it during the seminar though, because you will want to look at some other things that we're talking about. All right, so I love this saying, and it is true. This quote is from Michael Tout, who developed the neurologic music therapy protocols along with a neurologist and physical therapist. The brain that engages in music is changed by music. And we are going to look at some ways that that happens. So what is the best music for music therapy? And there have been a number of books and compilations that have come out that say this is the music you need to use for music therapy. And I am here to tell you there is no best music for music therapy. Actually, the best music for music therapy is anything. And the way to determine what is the best music for music therapy is the music that you like, you being the consumer of the music therapy. So we are going to, there's a wonderful video here again, don't look this up now, but the link will be in your notes, in your handout. But Dr. Oliver Sacks, and if you've ever seen the movie Awakenings, the doctor in that movie was Dr. Sacks. That was a true story. It was played by Robin Williams. But he passed away not long ago. He was a physician, a best-selling author, and a professor of neurology. He also was a very talented musician. And when he was young, he stated that he would tell people his two favorite things in the world were smoked salmon and Bach. And so Dr. Sacks participated in an experiment at Columbia University. And as I said, he was a Bach lover. So the experiment was to see how his brain responded to his preferred music, which was Bach. So what they did is they used an fMRI, a functional magnetic resonance, I can't say it, I'm a music therapist, not a scientist, but an fMRI. And they developed a tool, which you'll see in that image, where he could roll a roller ball to indicate whether the music moved him emotionally or did not. And so when he rolled that bar, it would track on a graph how well he liked the music, how his brain was responding emotionally. So they played a selection by Bach and they played a selection by Beethoven. And Sacks was invited to listen to those two selections, And when those 2 selections had finished, they asked him what his response was to the 2 selections. And he said he loved the Bach selection. It had some vocal components to it, and there was one part where he commented that when the soprano came in, it just sounded like heaven to him. And he said the Beethoven, not so much. So the image of his brain agreed with his description of his reaction to the movement. And when he saw the image of his brain, he said, sorry, Ludwig, because as you can see, in the Bach selection, when he listened to that, his brain was extremely active all over his brain. Beethoven, a couple blips, and that was it. So they conducted a second experiment with him, and they gave him his roller ball, and he was asked to listen to 2 more selections. One was Bach, one was Beethoven. They did not tell him which was which, but the 2 selections were very similar in sound. So he listened to these 2 selections, he rated them according to the emotion scale, and when they asked him his response to these 2 selections, he said, I couldn't tell which one was Bach, which one was Beethoven, and I actually didn't like either one of them very much. However, when they showed his brain scan, again, the Bach selection caused much more activity in his brain than the Beethoven selection did, even though he was unable to discern which was which. So the area that that had the largest response to his preferred music was the amygdala. And the amygdala is the emotion center of the brain. That's where our feelings come from. So especially they noted that the right amygdala was just firing a lot more strongly than any part of the brain when he listened to Bach. So the conclusion was that even when he was confused about whether he was listening to Bach or Beethoven and didn't particularly like either piece, his brain, there was something about the construction of Bach's music that his brain preferred. So music is processed at a cortical level. And that's important because when we are working with people who have memory loss, who have different forms of dementia, they cannot always express to us verbally what they prefer. And there's a wonderful phrase that I learned that said, behavior is communication. So we as clinicians, as therapists, as caregivers, care partners, we need to look at behaviors if we don't know the history of the client to determine what their preferred music is. And sometimes it takes some experimentation. So we are going to do our own little experiment right now, and you folks are the subjects. So what we are going to do is I am going to play some musical selections. And there are 5 selections. What I would like you to do is listen to all 5 before you make a choice. But these are 5 musical selections that are very different in style. So after listening to all 5, there will be another poll question. And in that poll, you will be asked to select the music that you responded to favorably. So I'm just going to ask you again, wait until you've heard all 5 to make that choice in the poll question. And if you want to make some notes and, put a star next to one that you really like so that you remember which ones your choices were, because you will be asked to identify them as your favorite through numbers. So here is the first selection. I'm just going to play a little bit of these. So here's the first one.
somewhere over the rainbow, way up high.
Okay, that was selection number 1. Here's selection number 2. Here's selection number 3. Here's selection number 4. And here is selection number 5. So, how can music help people with a dementia diagnosis live a better life? And you folks probably know better than anybody that, when you say dementia, it is a huge spectrum. It includes so many different diagnoses, so many different stages, so many different causes, and so many different types of things that we see that varies from person to person to person. So we are just going to look at a few ways that music can help people with dementia. So the first symptom, if you will, of dementia that we're going to look at is depression. And depression has been defined as sadness or loss of pleasure, tiredness and lack of concentration. And this definition came from a study out of Spain. So how can music help depression in dementia? Well, when we were talking about the experiment that Dr. Sachs participated in, the part of his brain that was most active during his preferred music was the amygdala, which, as we mentioned, is the emotion center. And so when we hear music that we like, the music stimulates the emotional and reward centers of the brain, and it acts as a natural motivator and stimulator for appropriate social and emotional responses. This presentation is about dementia. However, people without dementia also have amygdalas. So if you ever need a little emotional lift or a little reward, you can listen to your own preferred music, and that will help you to feel better in principle. So this is an interesting principle, the ISO principle. And here is the definition. The term ISO principle is unique to the field of music therapy. It was first introduced in the late 1940s, and that's when, as I said, music therapy kind of began working with these veterans of World War II as a method of mood management in which the music therapist provides music that matches the client's mood and then gradually changes the music to help the client shift to a different mood. So what that would look like is if I had a client who was depressed, I would probably start with, and it would need, as we just discerned during the example that you answered to in the poll, it would need to be something that the client, a type of music that the client enjoyed. So I'm going to go back to the ones that we listened to, and perhaps example number 4. You might have recognized it was Waltz of the Flowers from the Nutcracker Suite by Tchaikovsky. It's a waltz beat, and typically the waltz beat is considered a relaxing beat because our heart actually beats in a waltz pattern. It doesn't make a sound other than the sound of the heart beating, but oftentimes the sound of a heartbeat is described as lubbed up, lubbed up. And if you looked at it, 3, lubbed up, rest, lubbed up, rest, lubbed up. So it beats in a rhythmic 3-beat pattern. So in order to hit someone who is tired, you might want to match the beat of that heartbeat. So a waltz beat, such as Waltz of the Flowers. If someone seems to maybe be perking up a little bit when they hear the music, then you might want to play something that's a little more upbeat, like perhaps the first one that we listened to that you all liked is Singing Over the Rainbow, which is not real fast. It's still kind of soft, but it has a little bit of a backbeat with that rhythmic strum from the ukulele. So that might encourage their brain to wake up a little bit more, to feel a little bit more motivated. And then when someone is totally awake, totally engaged, totally interested in life again, you might want to play the piece that we listened to, number 2, which was John Philip Sousa's Stars and Stripes Forever, a march, which is very energizing. If you recall, what's the purpose of a march? It's to get the soldiers, very pumped up and ready to go to battle. So it can be used in that way. Conversely, if a person with dementia is agitated, you don't want to go in and play Waltz of the Flowers because their brain will not even register that. You need to go in, if someone is agitated, and play something with a strong beat, and definitely something they like, but something with a strong rhythmic beat that's going to grab their attention. And then you can change the tempo of your next piece of music to something that's a little bit more calm, that they may listen to, but it'll calm down their mood. And if you want them to really relax, then morph into something that is more waltz-like, that will really calm them down. Now, it says in this article that it is unique to the field of music therapy. Well, that may be so, but actually our culture has found out this is true. And so if I'm going to use the example of restaurants. So if you've ever been to a beautiful, expensive, fine dining restaurant, when you go in, the music is soft. It's usually something quiet. It's maybe strings or a piano bar, but it's something soft and quiet and relaxing. Why is that? Because when you go to a high-priced, fine dining restaurant, they make their money by, yes, the menu items are expensive, but also by you sitting there and having a couple drinks after dinner or having an after dinner coffee. They want you to leave a big tip because you've been sitting there for a while. So they want you relaxed. And so they play that relaxing, very soothing music. On the other hand, these have kind of gone the way of the dinosaur since the pandemic. But some of you might remember cafeterias like Furs and some of the other cafeterias. Denny's actually still does this. They make their money by filling the table, giving you food, and getting you out. So if you went to a cafeteria, or if you go to Denny's or a fast food place where they make their money by you getting in and getting out, you're going to hear more upbeat music because they're trying to excite you and get you to eat faster and get your heart, yes, I got places to go and people to see. So our culture has adopted the ISO principle in order to encourage what they would like their customers to do. So notice that next time you go out to eat, what kind of music is playing and where you are. But here is another one of my favorite quotes. Music is what feelings sound like. And that's where we're going with the amygdala. That's our feeling center. So I have another exercise for you to do. This is not a poll, but what I would like you to do is I would like to think about how you're feeling right now and what song or a line from a song that describes how you're feeling. Put it in the chat. And I have a couple of examples since we are still dealing with things from the pandemic. But these are lines from songs. The Georgia Satellites, she said, "Don't hand me no lines and keep your hands to yourself." The CDC also said that. And then the second one, a line from Whitesnake, "Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone." And the CDC also said that one. So take a minute, put how you're feeling right now, a song title, a line from a song in the chat. And I'll have Kim read a few of those. You know, we have a large group, so she's not going to read them all. But Kim, would you mind if you see some of those in the chat, just reading a few of them?
I will, and I led off with one myself. So everybody just think about a song that describes your mood. This is fun. And let's get a line or the title of the song. What song makes you think about the mood you're in now? While they're doing that, Karen, I wanted to share with you that I have a little trouble getting going in the morning. I am a morning person, but I'm moving kind of slow. So I don't know, about 5 years ago, I made it a practice to play music the minute I wake up. And it really just starts my whole day off with a smile on my face and gets me moving. It feels great. Go ahead and put your, okay, let's see what we got here.
Good, thank you.
We've got, oh my gosh, there's so many. I'm going to read some of these really fast because I just don't want to leave any of them out. Okay, let's see. "Break My Soul" by Beyonce. "What the World Needs Now Is Love, Sweet Love." Bach Suite #1 Prelude, "Amazing Grace." "When the World is Running Down, You Make the Best of What's Still Around." That's the Police. "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," "I Feel Good, I Knew That I Would." James Brown. "I Will Survive," Gloria Gaynor. Whitesnake, "Girls Just Want to Have Fun." "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," "Who Can I Turn To?" "Feeling Good" by Michael Bublé. Somebody really liked the fourth musical sample and they're still humming it. "Like a Hurricane." "Happy Man" by Chicago, "When You Walk Through a Storm." "There Ain't No Mountain High Enough," "Every Breath You Take." "Happy" by Pharrell Williams. "I'm Still Standing," "Yeah, Yeah, Yeah." "Invincible," "Ready to Go," "Feeling Appreciated," "You Are So Beautiful to Me." "Be" by Neil Diamond. "What a Wonderful Day." That was mine too. Louis Armstrong. "Live Every Day Like You Were Dying." "I Want to Hold Your Hand." "Most Things I Worry About Never Happen Anyway." Tom Petty. "Let There Be Love," "When Doves Cry," "All You Need Is Love," etc. She's got the look And I better stop with that, but I think everybody really enjoyed that,
Yeah.
Karen. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And we didn't get to read them all, but thank you. And just know, I mean, that's what you're looking for. Like Kim said, you know, if you need a little lift, start where you are now, and then look for something that will make you uplifted. So, generally speaking, when you're working with a client or somebody that you don't really know their history, research has shown that it's best to experiment with that person, find out what they like. Typically, people like the songs that were from their teenage and young adult years. So if you are working with somebody who's in their 80s or 90s, you'll want to do music from the 30s and 40s. And I put some suggestions. On the Sunny Side of the Street, that's a nice upbeat song. Grab your coat and get your hat. And then Night and Day is a very familiar Cole Porter, Night and Day, a little bit slower. And somebody mentioned this as the song they were thinking about. You'll Never Walk Alone. When you walk through a storm. So those are songs that would probably speak to somebody in their 80s or 90s. If it's somebody in their 60s or 70s, you're going to look at songs from the 50s and 60s. Elvis songs are always popular. Que sera, sera, I like that one because in our area in California, we have a lot of Spanish-speaking people, and Que sera, sera, that's not only a song that was written in English, but those words also translate in Spanish. Tennessee Waltz, there again, that's that 3-beat pattern, which would entrain with somebody's heart. And somebody, two or three people that Kim read from the chat, commented what a wonderful world are songs that they enjoyed. So look at how old they are and then select music from those years when they were older teenagers or young adults. And another quote from my favorite, Oliver Sacks, he wrote a book called Musicophilia, which is wonderful. But this is what he said: I've seen deeply demented patients weep or shiver as they listen to music they have never heard before. And I think that they can experience the entire range of feelings the rest of us can, and that dementia, at least these times, is no bar to emotional depth. And so that is my belief. I believe that music can reach us at a place where words cannot. So the next type of dementia we're going to look at, and we looked at this on that interactive brain, is the frontotemporal dementia. And many times people with frontotemporal dementia need help with their social, emotional, and behavioral skills. They might be insensitive or rude. They might act impulsively or rashly, and they might have a loss of inhibition. And that's where that understanding the brain comes from. Okay, so there are some drawings of the difference in pathology between Alzheimer's disease and frontotemporal dementia. They present differently in terms of what you see in terms of behavior, but that's because they're different parts of the brain. So, how music is used to improve social, emotional, and behavioral skills. It's motivating and engaging and can be a natural reinforcer. It can stimulate people to reduce their negative or self-stimulatory responses and increase participation in socially appropriate ways. It facilitates improved social skills. Music can be a community activity. If you're making music with others, it involves turn-taking, reciprocity, listening, and responding to others. And it provides a non-threatening and structured environment in which people have the opportunity to develop their own identity and appropriate expression of their emotions. And I have a personal experience with frontotemporal dementia. My sister is 59 years old, and she has been diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia for 4 years. She has lost her ability to speak for the most part. She exhibits some aggressive behaviors at times and is extremely difficult to engage in a meaningful interaction, personal interaction. However, what I found with my sister, she as a teenager, and actually her daughter told me as an adult, she played this for her daughter, loved Nilsson's The Point. And this is the song. I went to visit her, and this is what I played for her. That is not correct. Incorrect.
This is the town and these are the people. This is the town where the people all stay.
So she loved that as a teenager and as an adult. And when I played that for her, she calmed down, she looked at me, she smiled, and she said, yes. That is what spoke to her, and it connected us because that was something, even though I don't particularly like that song, but listening to it as kids together, it connected us. So the frontotemporal lobar degeneration spectrum, you can read that. It illustrates the involvement in musical semantic memory. That's how we remember music, how we remember music, and the behavioral consequences, which is what I saw. That is what I saw when I played that for her, and it connected us. So the takeaways from today, oops, got one more, sorry, almost didn't do this one. This is an important one, activities of daily living. If you are a care partner, this is a huge one. And there was a study that was done on music and bathing. And the study showed that it was a 2014 study, people with dementia who historically resist bathing and display aggressive behaviors can, using that ISO principle we talked about, you can actually make bathing time much more pleasant. And look at that last sentence. Typical simultaneous responses to the music intervention may include decreased physical tension, relaxation, and a reduction in aggressive behaviors. The study was on bathing, but the same thing can be used in dressing. Many people become agitated when you're trying to put them into clothes. It can be used when they need a change of an adult protective project, like a Depends or a pad. Again, that people can get agitated because you're doing something to them. Starting with that robust music and then making that music calm down to a waltz or a calming beat can help them to be more agreeable when you need to do care tasks with one who has dementia. And the bottom line is, as we just mentioned, use music that they like. So now we have our takeaways. It can improve quality of life for people with dementia. It is using music that is meaningful to the listener is best. Music can help care partners provide care to a person with dementia. And if you would like to find a music therapist in your area, you can go to that website, cbmt.org, and it has it listed by name and also by area. So we come to my favorite part. Well, here's a quote by Senator Reid. Simply put, music can heal people. Questions and answers. So I am open.
Okay, and while people are putting their questions in the question box, I'm just going to make a couple of announcements. And Karen, you might want to advance to the very next slide. There we go. I just want to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors once again. They're so wonderful. O'Connor Mortuary. I know Becky is with us today. Thank you, Becky. Care Choices, Hospice and Palliative Services, Caring Companions at Home, and Al's OC. I also want to reiterate what I said earlier, that there is no September webinar. No September webinar because we want to encourage everybody to participate in the, let's see what year it is. It's the 33rd annual Southern California Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. Research conference, sorry. So that event takes place on September 9th. It's a hybrid event, so you can go online and you can also go in person, but CEs are only given to those who go in person. And I did put into the chat the link to learn more about this conference, and that is conference.mind.uci.edu. So our regular webinar series will resume in October on the 11th, and we'll be talking about primary progressive aphasia. So that's going to be a great subject. And of course, it's been in the news a lot lately with, what's his name, Karen? Bruce Willis? Yeah, Bruce Willis was diagnosed with aphasia. So we'll learn more about that. All right. And so, oh, and don't forget, an evaluation is going to be coming. So let me go ahead and open up the question box now. And let's see what we have here for you, Karen. Will music therapy help someone with Bell's palsy?
I have not heard evidence about music helping with Bell's palsy. That is muscular, and so I would defer that, to someone who is probably a neurologist. However, in terms of function, I would say that perhaps a singing to work on articulation and strengthening the muscles around the mouth, the tongue, doing stretching, jaw muscles, that could perhaps improve some of the tone of the muscles. So that could be helpful. As I said, I'm just kind of surmising from what I know about music and physiology, that could be helpful, but probably your practitioner would have more answers on actual exercises that could work. And many times a music therapist can make those exercises more fun by adding a musical component to them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. The next commenter says, wonderful presentation. I was wondering, how do you approach music therapy in a population where hearing loss is an issue? Excellent question.
That is an excellent question. And there again, if they have an aid or if they have some hearing, I try to arrange, if it's a group, have them put close to me. The pandemic has been very challenging for people with hearing loss because I find that if people can see my mouth, it helps give them another cue as to what I am saying. Of course, with the pandemic, we have to wear masks. And so that makes it very difficult for people to, especially people with dementia and hearing loss, to understand what I'm trying to say. But there actually are music therapists who work with people with hearing loss, because music, the sound waves are actually vibrations, and people with severe hearing loss have used rhythm that they can feel, tactile rhythm, in order to improve their speech. People with hearing loss, depending on if there's a certain part of the hearing spectrum that does not bother them, sometimes I'll use drumming because they can feel the vibration in a drum head. However, depending on the person's hearing, sometimes certain frequencies are very troubling or even painful. So it depends on the person, what's going to work best.
Thank you, Karen. The next question is, what does ISO stand for? The attendee missed that.
What does it stand for? I have no clue what the ISO letters stand for. The principle is using music to modify the mood, and I would say also the behaviors of the person. So you start with music where the style of music, the feel of the music matches where they are right now. So if I'm mad, I'm going to use upbeat, rhythmic, powerful music. If I'm depressed, I'm going to use more quiet music. And then you can change what you hear or what you present to the patient to be a little bit, if I'm depressed, a little bit more robust music, and eventually hopefully come up with some music that's got enough rhythm that you will bring the person a little bit more out of their depression. They can also be used for pain. I have used the ISO principle for pain. When somebody's having extreme pain, I play powerful, strong, chaotic music, because that's what pain feels like if you've ever had extreme pain, and then calm it down to a more calm type of music. And sometimes that will allow the patient's pain to decrease.
Excellent. Let's see. Can people be helped by playing music as well as listening to music? I don't know whether they mean like playing instruments or playing records or what.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, from the time people were communicating, music has helped people. And so, you know, music can help anybody. As I said, music can help anybody. So playing an instrument, if that gives you pleasure, yes, that will help you. Listening to music, if it gives you pleasure, yes, it will help you. It can also, as Kim said, she gets up in the morning and puts up music because it gets her revved up for the day.
Yep.
There are times when people playing an instrument can help them with rehab. I have a lady I just started working with who has pulmonary stenosis, and I'm having her play a kazoo. And what that does is it puts a little bit more back pressure, because you have to blow through a small hole, on her diaphragm, which causes her diaphragm to work a little harder. What that's going to do is cause her lungs to be able to, you know, it's going to cause her lungs to want to open a little bit more. The hope is that that scar tissue will start to relax a little bit. So people use drums for rehab. If someone has range of motion in their arm, you might use a trombone because you can see how far out you can stretch. There are all sorts of different ways to use an instrument for actual rehab, for physical rehab.
I think that answers this next question. Can you give some examples of how we can use music in addition to just playing it? I think you did a pretty good job of that. Thank you. This is an anecdote that I'll share. Someone is sharing that they were just working today with a woman who has severe grief over a divorce and loss of her son. He used her favorite singer as a way to work with her. So well done. Would you say that music is a form of transportation where people can be taken to places that they picture from the past or places they're imagining?
That's a really good question, because actually in the amygdala, it's close to the hippocampus, which is our memory center of recent memory, but also our long ago memories are in the deepest parts of our brain, and that's where the amygdala is. And when you have music that makes you feel good, and there's a specific occasion or situation or person or historical event that's attached to that music, you will often feel the same emotions that you felt when that song became important to you. And it's so interesting because I have one woman I see, she's 102, and I played a song from World War II, and she burst into tears. And I said, "I'm so sorry." She goes, "No, it's a good thing." She said, "My husband left right after Pearl Harbor. She had just found out she was pregnant, and he left." And she said, "When I hear that song, it reminds me of how lonely I was, but it reminds me of how glad I was when he came back."
Great. Another anecdote. Thanks for a great presentation. Just a comment. I have Parkinson's and walking was becoming slow. My husband made a playlist for me of Sousa, John Philip Sousa marches, and put it in my headset. I was amazed. When I turned it on, my body took on a life of my own, a life of its own, and away I went. That's
Excellent.
wonderful.
Check out the Tremble Claps.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. What about Down syndrome? Is there an application for Down syndrome?
Well, you know, Down syndrome, I have not worked. I did actually in my practice. I worked with a young. Go ahead.
Let me interrupt you just for a second. I misread the question. For someone with Down syndrome, Alzheimer's, and depression. Sorry to interrupt you, Karen.
Yeah. So music, it depends on what you're going for. You're not going to cure Down syndrome. You're not going to cure Alzheimer's. You can help with depression. And so I would look at what the music could help with, and that would be the depression. And we address that, and that ISO principle, starting with something that if they're in a depressed state at the moment, something that's meaningful for them, maybe something that that they would associate with a happy memory. But my mom, her best friend's daughter had Down syndrome, and she loved Michael Jackson. And if you wanted to engage with that girl, all you had to do was play Michael Jackson, and she was dancing and singing, and you were best friends. So, there again, how to use the music depends on why you're using the music.
Great. Is music therapy covered by insurance?
That's a very good question. Typically, no. Some music therapists have had success with some insurance companies in using neurologic music therapy. In order for that to happen, they have to be a current neurologic music therapy. I'm very careful when I present on neurologic music therapy because I have been trained in it, but I am no longer certified as a neurologic music therapy. So if I did any of the techniques with you, they would not be reimbursable by insurance. Certain insurance companies, yes. Medicaid, for the most part, no. Medicare, no. So that's something our profession needs to advocate. And if you want music therapy, you need to advocate for with your insurance company.
I should ask Becky LaMaca this question, but I think that music therapy might be covered in hospice care. I mean, I've heard, that they use music therapists as part of the team. So maybe that's private foundations
actually,
or something.
I do work for a hospice, but the hospice pays me out of pocket. And I know St. Joseph Hospice had their foundation paid for the music therapy. So the music therapy did not come from their Medicare funds that they got.
But they recognize how important that is at end of life.
Many hospices do. Yeah.
Great. Let's see. Oh, Becky, thank you. Yes, it is part of interdisciplinary team, yet not all hospices offer it. So people need to ask for it. During a tense mood, does music help?
Yeah, and that's back to that ISO principle. If there is a tense mood, it depends on why they're tense. It's interesting. It was actually at the day healthcare that Alzheimer's Orange County. I always forget the name, Kim. The Healthy Aging Center.
Aging Center.
Yeah.
In Laguna Woods, and we have a Healthy Aging Center in Garden Grove.
Yeah, the one in Laguna Woods. There was a man there who'd had a stroke, and he was working with the OT, and his arm was so tight that she couldn't do any range of motion. So we co-treated with her. And what I would do is have him sing while she was massaging and relaxing his arm. And the music, it didn't do the relaxation, but it distracted his brain from keeping that arm tight. And so as he was singing with me, she was able to release the muscles in that contracted arm. And once the muscles were released, then she could do the range of motion exercises. So if that's the kind of tension you're looking at, otherwise the ISO principle, choose something that's kind of a similar tempo, and then start, calming it down to calmer music.
Okay, let's see.
That answers the question.
Oh, I'm sure. Let's see what else we have here. We'll just take a couple more questions. There's many questions, but Karen has indicated that if you don't hear your question read and answered by her, you can send that question to her email that you see on the screen.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just put in the subject line from webinar so that I know that you're not just spamming me.
Okay. Wait, I'm just giving somebody the website for the conference again. How do we find a music therapist?
The website to find a board certified music therapist is C as in certification board, cbmt.org, cbmt.org. And you can search for a music therapist by location or name.
I just put that in the chat, everyone. Okay, well, I think we're going to go ahead and bring this to a close. Although, Karen, I can't wait to share all the comments and compliments that you got, and we'll do that with you after the webinar. But appreciate everyone's participation and enthusiasm so much today, and we love having you with us, Karen. And our clients love your Music for Your Mind music therapy sessions that you do with them. Once again, I'm going to close this out, and when I do, you will be you'll get a prompt right away to fill out your survey. So please do that for us. And if you're interested in any other education that we're doing, you can send an email to learn@alz.org or check out our website and look at the many offerings that we have there. And we will hopefully see some of you at least at the conference in September. Otherwise, we'll circle back together in October for that topic of primary progressive aphasia. All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Karen, for a wonderful presentation, and please have a great day. Bye-bye.